it's the app and it's for the app, and I'm not gonna like try to find out who he is to get him canceled at his job.
Exactly.
You know, like I don't.
That's you though, and that's you.
And that's just me.
But there's other people that feel differently about that. By the way, there are 9 people in this room that haven't cashed in their red tickets, and I'm trying to determine what to do with these people. I feel like, I don't think that you should be able to be on stage if you have a pink ticket. Well, I could, but here's the weird thing. I can remove people with pink tickets, but I can't remove people that are here anonymous. Isn't that fucking weird?
Doctor will remove it.
Some people
This is my first time in this space, so.
Well, hold on. May I ask you a question? Hold on. Let me ask.
Oh yeah, good.
Black girl, do you enjoy being in the muff?
Oh my.
Well, this is my first day in here, so I gotta get warmed up.
Okay. Do you feel do you get a warm feeling being in the muff?
Well, not with all the people, not with some of the people in here.
It's not moist enough in here, so you just
the guy next to me.
just let her glide in slowly and see whether or not it's a proper fit. Just like let her do her thing.
She might need some KY jelly before she joins.
To keep it above, like let's test it out. Black girl, if I told you my name was Michael J. Wilson and I published a book entitled "Let Me Look at You," would you feel compelled to dox me after everything you've heard me say on, in various rooms? Sometimes maybe I don't.
I'm not a doxer.
But I'm asking the question to Black girl.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I don't dox. I think that's immature. So I don't do that. I have been doxed on here before. So
I thought you said this was your first day. You said this was your first day.
She said in this room.
in this space, pay attention.
This is the first time in the muff, and I just want to make sure it's a good one.
Is Adams in here? Is Adams in here? Because speaking of Beyonce, Adams, I don't know if he's in here, but I was in a room the other day, and somebody said they're going to be following Adams around to find out where he works at so they can dox him and get him fired.
Yeah.
So
that guy's the best troll on here.
I just want to say, a black, the fact that it warms my heart so much, and other things, when women like you become so comfortable in the muff, I really want to welcome you.
Well, Pepe, let's keep it real. You be saying some crazy shit.
Obviously.
Like people niggers.
Yep.
No, you're gonna shut the fuck up for a second. Listen, I know that you feel comfortable dropping that word in other spaces. I'm just gonna say you're not gonna say it in this room. Period.
Even though he's black.
My bad.
no N-words in the muff.
My bad.
Unless you like it.
What I'm getting at is, I appreciate Mojo, correcting me. But what I'm saying is, Pepe will drop the word. He will drop the N-bomb, as we say in the black community. And I don't feel offended by that.
Hold on, Gildas. Let me just say this also. Pepe, when he opens his own space, is entitled to do whatever he wants. I would never recommend or suggest or any of these things. Certainly wouldn't try to enforce my sensibilities on this topic to somebody else's space. Pepe can do whatever he wants there. And by the way, I will say, since I've returned, Pepe participating in the rooms that I've been in, whether it's in Healthy Debates or in here, I think that he follows decorum better in these spaces than almost everybody that gets on these stages. Now, I've heard his takes on a lot of things. He and I disagree, but as long as he's participating with the general rules of the road, which I think in this room, I think he's actually one of the more well-behaved people that come into this space.
Yeah, well, let me tell it from the black side of Clubhouse. It's offensive, it's they feel is like, how the fuck can he get away with this? Now, in my own personal opinion, I think he should be allowed to let that word rock. And the fact that you're saying, don't say it in here, is like what we're talking about. You know,
No, Gildas, here's why I have a problem with it, right? I'm not one of these people with delicate sensibilities, but I do want to create a space where people, whether they're young or old, this is more so than a black and white thing. There's a generational thing where some people are just like, hey, I don't want to be around that kind of content. I want to create a space where people can come in here and go, even if they know that, like, what Pepe's shtick was in his room, they could come in here and go, oh, okay, he's not behaving that way. And it's not just him. There's a lot of people that say a bunch of outlandish shit. By the way, I say outlandish shit. It's not about my sensibility. It's about, there are people on this app that would be able to contribute to these conversations that I want to feel comfortable to come in here. That doesn't mean that I think that word. I think in many ways it's refreshing, and I'll call it refreshing, that we have a First Amendment that allows people to say those things for the audience that wants to hear those things. I think it would be worse to be tyrannical and have a government to say that you have no space to do that. I'm just simply saying that in this space, it's not going to be done that way.
But Gildas, I think you there's one thing you don't understand.
think about it. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And then let's make sure we create space for timeout after Pepe.
Mojo.
Okay, I would say
Pepe
this.
always cuts off anyway. Mojo. So Mojo.
Oh my God, are you just gonna go?
Okay, I don't agree with Mojo.
Okay, so you think that we should just let people say whatever they want, Tom?
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Let Pepper, come on, please.
So,
Like, I get it. I understand that it's freedom of speech, but this is an app. This is not like the United States. This is what Clubhouse wants to be, freedom of speech. And you can curtail speech if it's a private entity. And if they say they don't want to hear the word nigger, they are within their rights. Now,
You're not going to just slide them in, dude. Like,
I think that came just out.
No, listen. He's smart enough to know what he's doing. And here's the point. People can fucking say that I'm violating people's freedom of speech, but those people don't know what free speech is all about. Free speech is that the government cannot impose these restrictions on your speech. You can say these fucking things. If you want to be in your living room and around people that enjoy having that conversation, go fucking right ahead. I would fight for your right to be able to say it. I'm just suggesting that there's another right that is equally important, perhaps more important, and that's freedom of association. And if I don't want to associate with people that speak that way, that's my...
I would just say this, like, okay, so I started on Discord many years ago, then right when the pandemic started, to be honest. It wasn't that many years ago, but you could look up Pepe versus Vosh, if any of you know who Vosh is. He's a far left-wing, twink.
He's a pedophile.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. And, a lot of people would say I got bodied by him, and that's fine. Like, I was a guy who just started, and, he's rhetorically a gifted person. It's kind of why he's popular bread tuber. But when it comes to my experience here on Clubhouse, now, I came here, I do think there is a such thing called luck. Like, why was they so popular so quickly? Like, on this app, a lot of people couldn't really understand it. I mean, the secret ingredient, honestly, was like, it was Mon. I would go into a room that was 100% black, and Mon would be like, well, just come up on stage. And then you had the Roosevelt, you had Herm, you had all of these people that were they had big rooms, and they kind of realized I would troll a lot, and they would basically roll out the red carpet for me. And so I kind of got like a big following on here, And even when it came to the Million Marathon people, I had like some room. It was obnoxiously titled like "The Downfall of America" is like like put like fried chicken, watermelon, basketball, black emojis, whatever. And there's like, what is that about? And all of a sudden, I see all of these people flood my room. It's like 500 people in my room, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm a picnicker, and I like picnicking, and we do all of those things at picnics. So, I'm playing a word game, and then they kind of realize I'm a troll, and then I meet just through that room. I end up all of a sudden meeting a whole bunch of people. And it's like I'm the one person. I was utilized, I would say, especially in like let's say Nelson's or Jonathan Biggs' room. People know I have a controversial opinion, and to them, it's something they can capitalize on in terms of uh, outrage. And so, I would say my incendiary talking points, and people would get upset.
No, why is it okay for you to use the N-word? Explain that.
Hold on. Before you interrupt, Gildas, when a mod tells you specifically what not to do, it's not a good idea to go and do it. And I don't care about the way that you try to slide it in there. I want to say this though, Pepe. I think you're right that there are mods that want that kind of controversy because what they're over indexing on is they don't care what the content is as long as the content draws a crowd. And I personally, I don't think there's other rooms that do that. You can open those rooms. I would never campaign to get you thrown off the app for doing the content that you do. And I would never tell Nelson, not to allow you on his stages. I just personally think that for the types of conversations that I want to have, I want to be able to have a space where when we're talking about politics, where we're talking about things that are important to me, like gun rights and taxation and whatnot, what I don't want is I don't want intelligent people that are put off by that word, because that word is very divisive. People just cringe at the idea of hearing it. They don't want to be around it, and I understand why. And if that is going to cause them to leave and then we don't get their contributions into these spaces, that's not a good thing. And so again, listen, I am not telling you what to do. The music I listen to, the content that I absorb, the TV shows, the movies, this word gets thrown around quite a bit. I'm a Quentin Tarantino fan.
And I won't say a word. And then Sarah, she goes in on me. And she sits up here and lies
This
too.
is like a
hold on.
Stop bringing my name.
Hold on.
Seriously.
Hold on. Hey,
She's
what
never
the
been here.
fuck is happening here? Sarah, listen. This is not fucking Vietnam. There's fucking rules in this room. You can't just interrupt me while I'm speaking.
I'm not dealing with this.
Bye. That's better than you interrupting me. And Black Girl, I know this is your first time in the muff, but there are rules in this room. Jesus Christ.
I'll say this, even amongst, I've talked to so many people that were like part of, especially the alt-right movement, which a lot of them, they honestly see what was at one point their movement as being just like a shit show, unserious, retarded, they don't have nice to say, but even the people that do, somewhat older beliefs, Richard Spencer, I can go on, generally in Twitter spaces where I talk to them, this crude, usage of the N-word, which I've done it so many times on this app. You're like, just I'm bored, and it's just like, okay, well, like, I'll just go ahead and trigger this person and whatever. But you can't really have a serious policy debate when it comes to, for example, you use taxation, gun rights, and so forth. When you start to bring race into it's that you're intentionally killing the debate. it's not something that you. It's muddying the waters. Like, okay, you may have some like ethnocentric views, but when it comes to things like who should have access to healthcare, gun rights, what should be, considered free speech, because there's some people who think that you shouldn't be allowed to talk about certain folks. At least that's part of the conversation nationally. I think that you can absolutely kill the argument if I was just to like dive in and start talking about Jews and whatever nonsense you see on a lot of the from a lot of like far right, especially the younger far right people. These are very naive and stupid people.
Thank you. Hey, Mojo, whatever happened to chat? I haven't been on any of these apps in a long time. And who did your avatar, Mojo?
What is that related?
ChatGPT did my avatar, and as far as Chatter goes, I haven't been on there quite some time. I think that app made a lot of mistakes, and just not interested in it.
Yeah, I kind of told you that, but
that use of the N-word on this.
oh, come on, man, you're giving him too much attention. Come on.
No, he's not. No, you're trying to center yourself. Like he's.
No, hold on. Why do we want to center a conversation around a word that I just told people that we shouldn't use? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Because it gets used.
Well, okay, then use it elsewhere. If you can't be in this space saying it, then don't come here.
I think it's smart for you to not allow the word to be used by anybody, but what I think Tamuk, or whatever his name is overlooking is that you have to understand it's offensive, and I mean very, very offensive as I was. The people that followed me that would come into my rooms were majority black. These black people, they were either entertained by it or they agreed with me. And so, as far as me using the N-word, these larger accounts, even on here when I first joined, they could care two shits that I used the N-word. They literally could not give a fuck.
Right, Pepe, you're correct. You're correct. And I think anybody that's been on social audio understands that a lot of the people that run rooms, and this would even describe me at certain periods of time on this app, like, if we're being completely honest, is that if what you're doing is trying to curate a space where your success criteria is the size of the room, you could throw all the rules out, you can let people speak over each other, and you can let them say whatever the fuck they want to each other, and that will attract a bigger crowd. I'm just saying that in 2025, the kind of conversation that I want to have, the type of people that I want around to have this conversation, I would much rather have a small room and a good conversation with people that are diverse, that have and by the way, when I say diverse, I don't mean diverse backgrounds, I mean diverse opinions. And so what I want is a space where people could come together and have a good conversation. My success criteria was the conversation good? I will again give credit, Matt Cool last night opened a room. I thought the conversation was phenomenal. I thought there was nuance. I thought there was people representing all different sides of the political spectrum having a really good conversation, and it became fairly big. But I think that the I think the success criteria was that it was a good conversation. It wasn't the size of the.
No, I think you do. I think you do it right. You don't allow people to use this kind of. You don't use people. Like for myself, if I was to drop the hard ER, which I would do if I thought. I felt like it, but I feel like it would just like absolutely pollute the conversation. And this room is not. It like we have actual conversations about shit where we don't have to deal with a lot of this toxic bullshit. And that's fine. Like, I'm not dropping.
Look, I don't know why we need to be able to have a continued conversation about something that's been made. And by the way, the same rule applies now in healthy debates. So if you're considering using the word in healthy debates, then think again or just find another place to be able to.
But I don't use that word in healthy.
Okay, great. Shut up, Peter.
Yeah, but I don't use that word in healthy debates.
Great. Got it. By the way, Pepe, I wasn't talking directly towards you. Okay, you interrupted me a second time. I chose to be able to drop it down just to try and control myself for half a second, okay? There is no reason why I'm having a conversation or debate without this word. I don't know why there's a need to be able to just hyperfixate on this, Gildas. Why do you feel like it's
If you ask him that, if you frame that as a question, then you're inviting a response. I think I agree with where you're going here. Nobody feels passionate about the need to argue about the rule that we shouldn't interrupt each other, because that's not sensation, right? Nobody wants to go against the rule of personal attacks, right? It's that a provocative word was said. There was hey, we're not gonna do that here, and then we want to have this meta conversation. I want to move on from that topic, and I want to have a real conversation.
Well, you want to move on from the conversation. Right. 2 nights ago, when I'm in the room with someone I called neurodivergent, you hit me and you were saying, like, okay, don't do that, Gildas. Don't talk to her that way. Don't call her neurodivergent. Don't call her autistic or whatever the fuck. But you can say the N-word, and that's okay, and that's like something that can be passed along through the rooms. Like, come on, man, that is not fair. If I can't call her,
he wanted to move on to
Gildas, maybe you don't get the point here. We have a topic for the room, and we're going to talk about the topic of the room.
You can splash that shit, man.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay. Look, if you're not enjoying this conversation, then fine. You can just hang out in the audience. That's fine. If you want to participate in this conversation, go ahead and participate in this one. What I'm not going to do is fucking open rooms and let people hijack it with what they're trying to talk about when the fucking moderators just said that's not what we're fucking talking about. Like what part of this do you not fucking get? Jesus, this part should be easy. It's fucking weird.
If I may, can I say what my room, what my goal for a room is?
You can, but then I want to immediately after that comment get to the topic of the room, and if we can't get on topic, I'll just go ahead and fucking end the room. Maybe this is just not the night that people want to have a conversation.
No, I want to ease into the topic of the room too. My goal for a room is to get as many black men 18 to 55 on the stage as possible, and then to get as many black women of the same age group and other people into the listening area. And the reason is because this is how we helped to win the election in a couple months ago. And I think that Elon tapped into a very different part of the America First or the electorate in general. And now we have this group of people that Elon helped to construct. Maybe he was like 30% of it, but he had a big part in it for this new group of people that tend to vote Republican, I guess, for now. But it was never like that before. The people that I'm meeting are completely different than anyone that I would have seen in this side of the aisle over the last 25 years since I've been interested in politics. So now we have groups of people that you would expect to hate this side of the aisle that are now part of it, and talk about divergent. There's so many different weird ideologies, and now the Republican Party is kind of struggling to pick one. And I just thought it's interesting.
I have a question. It says join Elon's American Party, so he's actually put a party together. It's called the American Party.
He's proposing to do this, and so I'm hoping he does. I not because I think that it's going to be massively successful, but I think it'll call a lot of attention to the fact that there's a danger in just giving people two choices. I think giving people more choice is good. I personally think at the national level, what this is really going to do is, if you think about it, he's going to attract the type of people that would typically either join the right-leaning libertarians or the Republican Liberty Caucus, people that are actual fiscal budget hawks, people that are more into the individual rights. I would fall into that camp. And so I think that would give a voice, but ultimately the way it would play out is you would just see in Republican primaries, you would see choices between a liberty-leaning Republican and these authoritarian-leaning Republicans, and I think that would be the choices that you would have. I think that's a good. I think providing those choices is a good.
So they actually put out okay. So it's an idea at the moment. They haven't established a platform yet, correct?
That is correct.
Or has they given any idea of what that platform might be?
I think the idea is the fact that the inspiration is behind opposition to the big beautiful bill. So if the opposition is on the grounds of government spending, specifically deficit spending, so the idea would be to put fiscal responsibility at the top of this.
Director, I agree with your point. Choices. I'm gonna say this. I think that Elon Musk alone, or that much, right? As Donald Trump alone, obviously has a lot of political sway. When they're together, they're a force to be reckoned with. But I really don't see Elon as a political entity going very far. I would like to hear what.
Specifically about Elon, you think Elon's going too far?
I have bad service. No, I don't think that Elon. I don't think that Elon has very much political. With Trump, he has quite a bit of political capital, but I think alone he like 100%, let's say, to like 20%.
No, I think this might be we're thinking about this strategically. He doesn't have to create a party that produces a presidential candidate. He doesn't have to produce a candidate that dethrones Trump. That is not what he has to do. All he has to do is put his money behind primary candidates that put pressure on MAGA Republicans, and to just simply say, these are representatives that are committed to be fiscal hawks. And then the way that you would battle that is you would just simply adopt those ideas, and then you would crush it. And then he wins anyways, because if he does this properly, it's going to cause more Republicans to be more fiscally conservative, and then you agree, right? You're going to have to go in that direction, because what is going to represent is that not only are you going to have a challenge in the general election from Democrats, but you're going to have challenges in the primary itself. And so if these Republicans, these establishment Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, the any of these fucking people that have proved to be big spenders want to, if they find themselves in a district where they could lose out, the margins are already too thin. The splits in the Senate and the House are too thin. If he could cause 2 or 3 MAGA Republicans to lose, that is a huge fucking thing. That is a big fucking deal. And I think that's something that Trump should consider. I think that's something that the Republican Party should consider. And I think Elon Musk is 100% correct about it.
I agree with Doc to some extent that, and you as well, as far as strategy, and whether he's going to definitely kind of pull through those that are frustrated on both sides to be able to write a platform that sounds good, that draws a good percentage of the people in the middle, because I do believe that both parties have only maybe 30 to 35 strongholds, and the rest are finding maybe a few things or one or two things that that causes you to vote one way or another. But if you can find those the right platform to write that people can read, and it kind of falls somewhat in the middle, a little bit more to the right, but can drag some frustrated Democrats as well. 30% is all you need. 30% is really all you need to really get traction, I think.
You're not going to get 30. You're not going to get hardly any Democrats. I don't think you're totally wrong in your statement, but I think that you're not even going to get. If you're even looking at Elon Musk's Twitter right now, you are not a Democrat at this point. I think that yes, he could, as Roger said, strategically with all that money, he could make a splash. I was kind of talking about more of the zeitgeist, like could Elon Musk wrangle enough support within the narrative to kind of make a difference? No, I don't think he could. He's just not, he doesn't fulfill that role. Could with his money.
What I don't get is that, like, the level of like partisan cuckoldry that happens, where like he's like, oh, I'm a real Republican, so I'm super MAGA. Like I don't want to offend anybody, and whatever. We saw the same thing with the Democrats, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I look at Trump as like a narcissistic piece of shit. He's a vessel that can kind of like maybe get done some of the things that I would like to see get done. But he first of all, he's not a fucking conservative. He's barely been a fucking Republican his whole life. And, with his populist movement, he's changed the Republican Party. And it's so weird to like watch like people that were like actual conservatives change into being like 1990s maybe bluegrass Democrats, but still not even that conservative. I mean, it's the people sticking to the party line. I think that is somewhat toxic, and I don't think it's that fruitful.
Yeah, I think the point is this: Elon opposed Harris because of her love for regulations and her desire to increase the deficit, right? Or the advocacy for the policies that she had that would have increased the deficit. And so he gets in. They create Doge so he can identify spending that's out of control. They make cuts. A bunch of people on the left cried about the cuts. And then right after the cuts are made, then it's like, hey, here's this bill that's going to add to the debt. And so I'll just say this. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you're not trying to balance the budget within the year, then what the fuck good are you? We need some opposition to this, somebody that's going to hold the line. In fact, we don't need a balanced budget. We need to run a surplus to be able to pay down the fucking debt. And the fact that nobody on either side now cares. It used to be an issue for Republicans, and then the debt got so big that they're like, fuck, I don't know how we're going to do this. So then they abandon their principles, and so now they spend just as big and just as irresponsibly as Democrats. And I think that is the point that Elon's trying to make, and that's the point where I think he's going to win over a lot of people. He's not going to win over the majority. He's certainly not going to win over the people that got interested in politics because Trump says weird shit. Like, he's not going to win those people over. Of course not. Those people were watching sports and Howard Stern before fucking Trump got it fucking into politics.
I would say that even those who were conservative, they at least talked the talk. And as far as walking the walk, they didn't really walk far because they were politicians. So, but at least they they spoke, campaigned, and really showed effort. And
Conservatives are the biggest pussies ever.
I would agree with you now. You can see that everything they were saying before that we kind of knew was a lie really shows up as a lie because everybody spends money up there. They all spend money.
Conservatives conserve fucking nothing. What have conservatives conserved in the United States? Like nothing.
So that's what I'm saying. They lie and they act like they're walking the walk, and if they take a step, it really isn't walking. And now it's blatant. It always hid. They hid it well, and would convince people. But yeah, everybody spend money. They all spend money. Even when they say they're passing over a surplus, is it really a surplus? Is it really a surplus?
Clinton really operating under a surplus? Does anybody know? Roger?
No, are we now? No.
No, we haven't had a surplus since 2000.
I mean, the debt is so high in comparison. Like, in my mind, I still get pissed off when we spend money on a forever war that costs us $10-20 trillion over a decade or so. I still have that in my mind. I don't want to do that. But I mean, I gotta be honest. Sometimes I just think, like, if the spending is for the actual American citizen, I might not be as hard on it because I know we're just gonna have a war with China anyway to erase all that debt. We're never paying it back.
Well, doctor, here's the problem: is our politicians think in short term. They think in terms of election cycles. When it comes to the debt, people are going to judge you based on how were you living while this guy was president? How were you living when these people were in Congress or the Senate? Like there isn't like I think that's the primary fault of our country is we don't. It's rather prohibitive to think long term what is best for us. I'm not saying, obviously I don't want like
you could at least balance the budget though. Like I just thought of that. Like you could at least balance the budget for that year. That would be.
Yeah, but no, not really, because there's a huge chunk of Americans that are like, oh, you can take these entitlements away? Like, how fucking dare you? And then their life is hell under that administration. And it's gonna cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, well, a couple things. First of all, we're not going to war with China. We should probably pay closer attention to the fact that there's a good chance that Xi is no longer even in power. There's a lot of interesting things coming out of China right now to change the direction that they're going, because their economy is fucked absolutely in the goddamn toilet. And the word coming out of China is that they know that in order for their economy to get back on track, they're going to have to play nicer with the U.S. And so they're already working on a transition that would distance them from the Russians and get them a little closer to us. These are things that will come out. The news cycle's not covering it today, but the journalists that are in China are covering this stuff, and at least the brave ones aren't. Once it starts hitting mainstream news, though, I think what you're going to see is all that talk about, like, we're going to war with China yeah, it's not going to happen. China's going to sing a different tune, and they're going to become our friend again.
That's actually different than what I heard, Mojo. I heard that when Trump was in office the first time, just like they were easily able to pivot with the soy and get it from Brazil versus us, that they've literally been preparing for this day. Because if you notice, a lot of the other countries are dealing with Trump differently this time. They kind of were very cautious with Biden because Trump did not disappear. He was very prominent in politics, more so than typical previous presidents. So China has actually been doing a lot of quantitative easing, subsidizing, which they always subsidize, but they've actually been trying to which is proving right, build up other economies such as Africa, so that they can eventually create more consumers that will replace American consumers. So I don't think that China's throwing in the towel. I'm always going to bet on China, right? They've literally existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we're still pretty much a baby in this, and they plan for the long term. So I would not put China out. Remember the last time we had issues with Iran, they had their ships just kind of circling in the water. So just to kind of further bolster.
So are you aware of the rumors that Xi is on his way out?
Yeah, but even if Xi is on his way out, like that's the thing, the continuity, what they have in continuity versus what we have in continuity, like there's zero comparison. Like there's zero comparison. There's a reason why China has stayed this way forever. I mean, they cook the books. They don't even really reveal to the rest of the world what's going on. So that's what I'm saying. The United States is basically responsible for an international trade war, literally for no reason. In a post-COVID economy, the United States is the one responsible for a lot of political and financial unrest. We are no longer.
That's not consistent. That's not.
What are you talking about? That's not consistent.
No, that's not consistent with an objective worldview of the fact that China's been flooding our market with cheap goods.
For how long?
For a long fucking period
of
time.
But who's the president that decided to allow American companies to do that in China? You act like it's Chinese manufacturers. It's also American manufacturers.
You said a couple of things that are just like historically inaccurate. Like you talked about China and their consistency with their government. Actually, this is actually relatively new on the global scale. This government, they've only been around for 75 years. The China that existed prior to the Communist Revolution was actually pretty vibrant. Now, what's happened over the last 20 years in terms of them building cities out of nothing and building up their military, they've spent a lot of money, but now their economy is in the fucking doghouse. China's economy is dog shit. They are in very big trouble, and the projections that people have in terms of their population, India is going to continue to gain population because their birth rates are on the rise. China's, on the other hand, in the next 30 years, their population is going to cut in half. So I think that there's a lot of people that are operating on information from 10, 20 years ago around China and not the stuff that's happening right now in China. I think if you were to pay closer attention to this, and again, we could come back and talk about this when it happens. I'm gonna be on the record, just like I was that Trump was gonna win in a landslide, and all of the people that disagreed with me there, most of them left the fucking app because they were embarrassed, that didn't want to get the "I fucking told you so." So I'll get an "I told you so" on this one when Xi is out of power and China comes to the table and wants to have better relations with the U.S. Not only am I betting on that, I'm fucking guaranteeing it. This isn't a prediction; it's a.
So, okay. Again, you fall for Western propaganda that the United States is the biggest and the brightest, right? You literally have Jerome Powell, who just said that he would have lowered interest rates if not for the tariffs. So when you want to talk about economy, be careful, Mojo, because you're literally sounding like a typical American who's caping for your country without understanding the immense amount of debt that we are in. So if you want to poo-poo somebody's economy,
is there anybody on this?
Are you going to let me speak or what? Okay, you know what? Yeah. Have a good day.
Okay.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, on this topic, yes. Yeah.
I mean, I was about to unload. I mean, I was.
Well, certainly more than he does.
Hold on. I've actually met a county president. I spent $1 million fucking times over there.
Yeah.
If you want to come up here and talk about Western propaganda, if she works for BlackRock, she don't work for fucking BlackRock. And then they found out she worked there, they'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
She didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. Yes, I'm gonna cape for fucking the U.S. It's the greatest fucking country in the history of mankind.
Absolutely. But it's no bullshit.
I fucking cape for the U.S. Jesus Christ. But her lack of understanding, look, you gotta remember that she spends time in rooms with people like Jonathan Bing with an IQ of like 65. like this is not somebody that's been confronted with people that are educated on topics that she likes to speak on. I'm not saying that she's wrong about everything. I'm just saying that when she's wrong, she's so fucking overconfident. When you have low information and high confidence, it really is a disastrous combination. And she is one of the most overconfident, low information people that's.
Well, if she wants to drop that Black Rock damn. Well, I mean, I was like, no fucking way, man.
Well, the thing about
you got me
her, sorry, buddy. The thing about you just mentioned, right, is this low information voter who thinks that they're a high information voter, and the perfect example is maybe like a Jonathan Bing room or Lisa 420 room, who I happen to love. Lisa, she stands up for free speech as much as she can, with the hordes of evil liberals, but people like her have not been confronted, like you just said, have not been confronted with an intellectual argument to what they say. They sometimes I'll sit in those rooms for an hour and hear them go back and forth and have it ramp it up and oh yeah, we're so right, and everyone's agreeing with each other. It's really fucking disturbing. And then somebody like Pepe or me or Mojo goes into that room and has to disabuse them of their retardation. They hate us. I mean, they're screaming. They want to put us in prison or in chains because it's so shocking to the psyche of somebody like that who's not around people that disagree with them that often. It's so shocking to the psyche of people like that they kind of act like animals. And somebody like that has been saying the same things to her friends and the people on Clubhouse and elsewhere for years and years and years. And those friends and elsewise have been saying, yeah, you're so right. Wow, look at how smart you are. Look at your knowledge and breadth on the Chinese government and the way that it's working. Like you said, she's fucking 10 years behind in what she's dissertating on in front of this whole room. And it's a really strange thing. I think it's our job to disabuse retarded people like this of their notions, not for them, but for the other people that are listening. That's my...
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. The interesting part before she jumped in was that I was disagreeing with you when you said that we would go to war with China. I'm taking the under on that. I think China is going to emerge as our friends. And I don't mean friends that we could trust, but at least somebody that is just going to openly say, we don't want the smoke. I think they're going to do that, and we're going to see that probably, I would say over the next 18 to 24 months, you're going to see China take a completely different position on these things because they fucking have to. They might not be as great as America, but they're not fucking retarded.
Just to put it to bed, I actually agree with that statement that you just made. My war statement was simply to describe to people that we're not going on a payment plan with China to pay off the national debt. What we will do if it comes down to that point where they're calling for the money and we're risking a bank run or multiple bank runs, etc. What I'm just saying is that we're not going to do that. America's not going to start a payment plan. They're going to find a reason to get into a war with China or their allies or somebody that could that's connected to this, and have a big war, and that will be erased in one way or another. I don't know what will cost more, but that's the way countries, not just the United States, historically have dealt with major debts of an unbelievable proportion. They don't just pay them back with a coupon book. They engage in some type of conflict, war, and they do that as a way to default on their debts, in my opinion.
And if I may say, that has been the statement that we've spoken about in the 80s. Kind of waiting and wondering when that was going to happen, because I agree with you. We said that a long time ago. We were in the military. I was in the Marine Corps, and for years when a lot of us would sit around and talk sometime, we were like, with the debt at that time, we said, there's two ways to keep the peace between America and China. One, you allow them to buy up property here for cheap. You got to sell out America or go to war. Those are two ways to handle that. That's what we've always said. Now, I think the land portion has probably been happening. We're just not familiar with it or aware of it. I know it did happen around some of our military bases back in the late 80s. I think it was about mid 80s or so. We were questioning it. It wasn't with China though at that time. We were wondering why land was bought up by another country, probably because of debt. But I agree with you. Just don't know when.
Hey Gary, did you ever go get your information to help defend your position on the 27th Amendment?
I sure did, and I was waiting for you to ask. We both are right, and I'll let you know why. As you stated, the Article 1, Section 6 have been in place since the Constitution. You're right. And then I said, at one time they were paid by the states, so you would have to go look at the Article of Confederation, because that's what drew the debate.
That predated the Constitution.
Excuse me?
That predated the Constitution.
Yes, and when you go back and look at it, you'll find out that was the debate because they were getting paid by their states, and then they had to figure out how they wanted to get paid, which is why you're right. That was put into the Constitution at that time. But prior to that, they were getting paid by the states. We're both right.
You know what Doctor just said about that money in China just reminded me of that scene from Home Alone. He's like, yeah, how much money do I owe you? Hey, she said 10%, and then he gives him the fucking countdown and shoots him. That's what it really boils down to. I find that true. I think we did some weird shit with France back in the day with the money we owed them, and they ended up selling us a badass piece of land later down the line. They had to, pawn it because they were in debt. So, but I do have some concern about their activity in Africa, though, and in that, the race towards minerals and stuff like that for the electric move with all these EVs and things of that nature, and more electronic, more of an electronic economy, So I do think Africa is the next playing ground.
And by playing ground, I'm glad you brought that up, Blake. What they're doing is they're offering these loans that these poor African countries are never going to back. It's the Silk Road Initiative.
And what is China getting in return for that debt, that unpaid debt?
You brought up the minerals. You brought up places, stage bases, a regional hegemony, hegemon, and when it comes to transportation, logistics, and things like that. I mean, the old Silk Road. Darren says hedge cutters, so I don't really know what that means, but it sounds fun. But yeah, to have that transportation, I mean, if anyone knows anything about history, like the Silk Road was about trade from the east to the west, and that's what they're going to try to set up, and they're really doing a lot of detriment to these poor countries. Hey, and don't get me wrong, every Western country's done that. Okay, colonialism, America's also done that, but they're looking at Africa as their way to do it.
Are you talking about the Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, the Silk Road, the Belt and Road. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to put as much money as possible and create as much debtors as possible, and Africa's just right for it. They're ready to sign the contract. These people who have nothing good in mind for them, and also Americans. Somebody brought up before Chinese buying up land in the United States. Come to New York City. fucking 20% of the big buildings and apartments are bought by people who don't even live here and have Chinese national residency and citizenship. So, I mean, what my point is just that when we talk about the deficit, people tend to think about it like their own bank account, and that like they're gonna make, you know, micro payments over the next 80 years in order to pay down that debt. That's not gonna happen. The best thing that we could do is to stop creating new debt at least, and we got to figure out what to do with the old debt. But it's not going to be a payment plan. It's going to be some type of complex, some type of big land purchase, like somebody just mentioned before, might have been Roger. That's the way these things get dealt with historically. They don't start payment plans.
And also, it goes back historically that China and their citizens, and I know someone mentioned earlier they're talking about Mao, and it went back in the 40s and things. But no, like, I mean, they still have the same culture, right? They will eat shit for their fucking government if it means like they'll take it for 100 years up the ass, right? And I know that's a really bad way to say it, okay? But if you've been over there and you understand their politics, secondly, and thirdly, you understand their history, they plan 100 years ahead. It's not every 4 years or 8 years and stuff like we do here in the United States and most Western governments, right? I mean, they will take one for the team, and some quite don't want to do it, but most of them, like, well, they have no choice, right? Because that's the type of authoritarian government they have.
They have a number of, like, several areas in China where these high rises and these buildings are empty, and they overbuilt. People can't afford to live in the new housing that they built in these like new mega cities that went up, and there's a bit of a crisis over there
And
that
Abby,
they're dealing with.
Abby, you're 100%. Like, if you ever fly into the Beijing airport,
Yes, many times.
You're gonna fly over all these, like, it's just show off, like, you know, their buildings and stuff. Nobody lives in that stuff.
Yeah, same with areas in
Right.
Shenzhen and Guangzhou that they're empty.
Yeah, it's just like a show off, like, all right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah.
There's also a push from our government to not have Chinese businesses involved in sensitive areas in the United States, like in our ports, to try to remove a lot of the Chinese businesses and Chinese interests working. And I know for sure this came out of the Senate, and the ports in Los Angeles and some of our bigger cities for security reason.
Part of the reason that they're buying up land within the United States. Because now they're already about what you were describing in China of the buildings being built for show and not being able to complete. The craziest part about that is you have a lot of like what we would call middle class Chinese nationals. They have to pay half up front for those fake apartments that don't exist or houses within the building, whatever you want to call them. And then they have to pay half of it up front, and then there's like a 10 to 12 year waiting list for them to actually get their domicile. And it's like, shit. And they have, but now it's all about to come crashing down, and I don't want to hear it. I'm happy it's going to come crashing down. And I think the United States government should do whatever they can to facilitate that, because China is really the only threat to our global chokehold on the reserve currency of the world. And we need to keep that, obviously. If we lose that reserve currency status, every one of our lives is going to be destroyed, because that's what keeps
But Ricky, I'll tell you a weird thing about them, and you can tell me if you think I'm off on my prediction. With respect to what they're doing around the world and the construction and the building crews and the Chinese involvement in development in nations all over the planet, including, by the way, in Israel, they're redoing the 2 ports, as well as the light rail system are built by Chinese companies and Chinese nationals. I think they're going to be the ones to rebuild Syria, to rebuild Gaza. I mean, that's where the labor forces are coming from, and that's the companies that are coming in. They're rebuilding and owning ports all over Africa and also in the Middle East. I just think we forget about that element and the influence around it.
I don't think they're ever going to be rebuilding Gaza, because Trumpy Bear is going to have quite a bit to say about Gaza and rebuilding it into the big, beautiful hotel resort area.
What labor force do you think, like a place like Syria, or a place when you start to bring in labor
I'm thinking about Syria. You could use India. Well, that's where this whole fight is. Hold on, let me just say this: the whole entire global fight right now is between who does America sidle up to? Do they sidle up to the Chinese, or do they sidle up to India? They have similar populations. As Roger said before, within the next few years, they're going to have very similar populations, because India's population is on the rise, while China's population is on the decline, and they also have a giant problem within their economy. Like, we need to get with India, like Trump tried to do in his first term, and make our trade agreements with those fucking 7-Eleven brown people. They're fantastic people. They're always asking, how do you do, sir? How's everything going? You know, they're much better choice than those fucking gooks.
But no, well, man, you know, I think what Abby's saying is like, I mean, China will come in, they will subsidize those workers and engineers. I mean, who's going to build it? Yeah, some other country's going to build it, right? With their people. They'll bring in from Bangladesh, they'll bring in from Southeast Asia. But who's going to create these different things and all the roads and all the devastation that needs to be made to become a new Syria? And I was talking to 2 guys today. They're both doctors. They're going over to Syria this week. And first of all, my first question was like, why don't you guys just stay there and like try to be a health minister, you know, get a diplomatic passport and shit. But it's very stable over there. And but who's going to rebuild the infrastructure? I'm not that sure. But China will definitely step in if no one's going to do it. And I do not think that we have it in the political will or the budget, I mean, in the United States to give those dollars. I mean, there's no interest in the political class unless there's something to be made or some kind of money to be made over there. There's no Marshall Plan.
BlackRock is going. BlackRock is going to build those. Yeah. And they're going to make a ton of money, and they're going to get paid that money out of our defense budget.
But they're going to invest it into the poor people of India and invest it. I mean, they're not. Investment company. BlackRock.
No, they understand exactly what they're doing. There's an open checkbook to our U.S. industrial our military industrial complex. I'm not trying to get all fucking conspiracy. This is exactly what happened in Iraq and Iran. Are you aware of what happened in Iraq? Iraq and Afghanistan. Are you aware what happened in Afghanistan as far as the military contracts to rebuild that country that went out? Are you up to date on that?
Didn't the base that we abandoned go to the Chinese in Afghanistan too?
They did, and before that was after we left. And
right.
Before we left, we built billions and trillions. We spent trillions of dollars in those 2 countries to rebuild roads to nowhere, roads to a cave, gas stations for places that don't have cars. Like, this is how the absolutely corrupt portions of our government and big business, this is how they make their money. So no one's going to let rebuilding Africa or rebuilding places that you just mentioned go. They're going to bid contracts on it, and then they're probably going to have no bid contracts to rebuild it.
Well, the area is like in the Levant area, and it's not Africa. And then it's completely different than the,
okay, well, this is just the way it's gone for 35 years.
The Chinese transportation trade route.
But if you, what I was saying before though, if you look at where China's now laid businesses and also the port issue, and just follow this and stay like attuned to the the big port of Paris. I don't know if I'm saying it right, in Greece, and also in Sri Lanka and all over Africa, all over Latin America and Europe. They have taken over these ports. And they have like long-term leases and ownership stakes, or like management contracts in all of these ports, and it's really going to be an issue as to whether that gives them like an economic leverage, or like whether they can affect trade routes, etc. I mean, I think the world's gonna maybe start, they're already taking notice to it, but the US for sure has. They're just gobbling up the ports.
That the whole thing about like China stepping into Syria, I'm gonna actually I want to know who's gonna like rebuild all that, because Syria does have an economy that can be rebuilt. I mean, Gaza, fuck. I mean,
that's a resort town.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll make it into the Cancun Mall and Royal Del whatever in Mexico.
No, maybe Trump Gaza.
No. It's just,
you think he's kidding when he said that. I guarantee you there will be some. The hands of the United States will be involved in redesigning and rebuilding Gaza after the Israelis leveled it, which I fully agree with, by the way. The Israelis leveling Gaza, but you watch, America will have some hand, or even Trump's own companies will have some hand in rebuilding that and making it a nice resort town.
Well, I really know fuck all about Gaza, except for when I asked someone from the State Department. He was I work for the State Department, but he went over there. And he traveled these different countries, and I was like, "What's the worst like place you've ever been to?" So like, absolutely Gaza. And so I kind of don't imagine the devastation shit that like they've like gotten over there. I mean, who wants to fucking rebuild that place? That place was a shithole in the first place. So I don't know anything about Gaza. I don't want to talk about everything between Israel and Gaza.
It's not shit.
This is not the room. This is not the room for that. It's not the room for that, man. But Syria is something that I am interested in talking about geopolitically and what can be done in the Levant, and hopefully China does not get a hold of it when it comes to the rebuilding. And are they going to have Chinese people come there? Fuck no, man. But when they send out their engineers and their money and their money men and all that stuff, that's the influential part.
I told you they're already building the port of Ashdod and in Haifa. They're redoing those ports, and they're building the light rail that hasn't completely finished in Tel Aviv. I mean, and it's Chinese workers.
In Syria.
I'm talking in Israel. I mean, they're in countries, Chinese labor. It's not just Chinese-owned companies, it's labor.
Fucking, that's interesting as hell. Thanks, Abby. I thought I knew everything about geopolitics and I didn't know that.
There's some new good Chinese restaurants in Tel Aviv as a result.
No shit. I've only seen Israel through binoculars, just like I've only seen Iran through binoculars. I'd like to go there though.
It's a beautiful country.
So what was Missouri saying in the chat? A lot of things that didn't make any sense to me, but if you want to share them on the stage.
Hey everyone, it's Missouri. I'm from Moscow. I don't know what. I'm sorry. Like, if you have any questions, you can just ask me on the things that I write on the chat.
Oh, I don't have questions. That's just.
I think he was saying. I think he was saying that Europe is. He was basically trashing Europe and saying that the area in the Gulf will develop faster than Europe. Am I reading what you're saying right?
Exactly. Because Europe is going to die. And President Trump is always pushing forward for this. But it seems like none of the European countries care. That's why I think it's a dead place now. Since they blew up the North, how do you call it, the North Pipe that went all over Europe from Russia to Germany, the United States eventually blew it up. They blamed Russians for it.
Wait, hold on. Can you post a link in the chat to your evidence of that?
Sure. You have even videos of Clarkson asking Putin who blew it up. And Putin just says it to his face, you guys, like you blew it up. It would go
No, but I'm asking you for evidence of them blowing it.
Sure, yeah.
Listen, we're going to find out if he knows what the word evidence means. Mike, what's happening? Missouri here is going to...
His name is Misery.
Misery?
No, it's like it's a family name. Like my ancestors were originally from Georgia. Then, like 50 years ago, all of them just moved to Russia when Stalin was the president of the Soviet Union.
How do you say it not American? Because it totally looks like Missouri.
Missouri.
Oh, so it's like, well, yeah, we gotta stay like that. We call
Yeah.
it Missouri.
It's with a double S, I think.
Yeah, do you have that link that you were going to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Nord Stream pipes. Yeah, you got it. Even you have video on it. That's really interesting.
So Wikipedia is what you shared. Let's see what.
Yeah.
Well, do you know how Wikipedia gets its information?
Well, I don't like even care where it gets this information.
Well, do you know how it's updated?
Yeah, I know, but it's
You do? You do explain to me how it's updated.
Listen, it's something done like 3 years ago, and this thing eventually they like wanted to cause more inflation in the Russian currency, more problems, more sanctions by blowing it up, but it ended up happening like the exact opposite because Putin all of a sudden had agreements with Brazil, South Africa, China, North Korea, Iran, India, a lot of more countries.
Yeah.
And
Hold on. I want to. Hold on. The link that you provide to the Wikipedia page, it quite literally says that the investigations were closed in February of 2024 without identifying those responsible. Where was your evidence that I asked you to produce that the U.S. was responsible for that?
my evidence is the things that President Putin says.
Wait, your evidence is the words of what President Putin says?
The president of Russia, of course.
Wait. So you believe that his words serve as evidence
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I said, I just want to make this clear. I said before, when I asked you to produce evidence and you said you would, I don't know if you guys heard me, mumble under my breath.
I have.
Hold on. Don't interrupt me. Listen. Don't interrupt me. Do you know what the words "don't interrupt me" mean? I don't know how to say it. Fucker. Okay, listen. I don't. You're a fucking retard. I asked for evidence. You showed me a Wikipedia page. The Wikipedia page that you show actually says the opposite of what you said. And then when I said, "Where's your evidence?" then you said, "Well, President Putin said." And prior to me asking for the evidence, I actually said to you, we're going to see if this guy knows what the word evidence means. So, anyways, this is what we deal with on fucking Clubhouse. By the way, if the U.S. did blow it up, wouldn't fucking shock me. Wouldn't be a shocker. The point I would make is that you don't have the fucking evidence of who did it. Nobody does. And your own fucking link that you provided suggests exactly that.
There was no espionage or anything in there. I mean, both of those pipes were good. They're good for Russia. They're good for Western Europe. Nobody wants. I mean, they're closely monitored. No one wants to fuck with those pipes. No one's blowing them up. According to what the other gentleman said.
The other gentleman's from fucking Moscow, and he says that whatever Vladimir Putin says serves as evidence. I don't know how stupid we can get. Look, I'm an American. Hold on. Listen, I'm as American as it fucking gets, and I don't believe what presidents say to us. I think that we know that politicians lie, but this guy wants to come in here and say that whatever Vladimir Putin says is evidence. This guy's a fucking... All right. One down. Who's next?
Roger, do you really think that, I don't know who he said blew up the Nord Stream, but doesn't it make sense that perhaps
he said that the U.S. blew it up.
Wouldn't it make more sense that the Ukrainians blew it up, maybe with some intel from the U.S.? Or no, you don't believe that?
It wouldn't shock me to learn it. Like, this is the thing, right? I don't have evidence of who blew it up, so I don't make claims on who blew it up. Because the truth is that there's no way for me to know. I don't go underwater. We've never really had a thorough investigation. The investigations that were conducted came back with they couldn't conclusively say who was responsible. So the people that are investigating it don't fucking know. How the fuck is somebody that spends their time on Clubhouse supposed to know? And I guarantee that fucking retard from Moscow doesn't know. In fact, he said that his evidence was going to be provided in that link. His evidence disproved his point, and then when he got called out on that, he said that Vladimir Putin said.
He laid it out pretty good. But, and so you're probably correct, and we shouldn't make assumptions. But doesn't it sound outlandish that Russia would blow it up? Like, do you think that makes sense? Or no? Considering it's a huge thing for them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's the one thing that we could say is that ever since the war, despite the fact of that pipeline, they've made a fuckload of money selling oil. So I'm not smart enough to understand the geopolitics when it comes to, how a warmongering tyrant can march into another country, have sanctions put against them, and they're fucking rolling in dough. It's crazy. I don't get it. It's over my head.
I think it was India, right? India, they started selling all their shit to India. they started selling oil to other places. And I think all Rogers is saying, like, he's not saying we can't put it past the United States, but to just blatantly say it was them is irresponsible. I mean, I guess you can't put it past them.
As a doctor, yeah, no, I think that's the thing. Like, as a doctor who's responsible, like myself, I think maybe it is irresponsible to say that the USA blew it up. But I think it's also irresponsible to say that Russia blew it up. I don't understand any benefit that could have happened from that. And it's like, I'm not a historian and I don't know the facts, quote unquote, as much as some people. But as far as the narrative goes, we have to use some common sense here. Since we don't know, the reports say we don't know, and the all-powerful Wikipedia says we don't know who actually blew it up. Like, okay, I'm not going to die on this hill that Ukraine blew it up, but I'm also not going to say silly things like Russia blew it up either, because it doesn't make any fucking sense. And if nothing else, we have to make sense. We have to see somebody capable of who benefits in order to make an assumption like that. And I think we just don't have that with Russia. I don't think there's a benefit to that. So I think it was probably us, but I have no evidence of that. So us giving Ukraine the intel, by the way, not us necessarily.
I bet the French did it.
The French are a bunch of pussies. They don't do anything.
Yeah, what am I talking about?
They really are. They got some serious shit, though. Like, the French Navy is pretty badass in comparison, not to us, but to the rest of the little pussies.
The French military was supposed to have all this badass weaponry when fucking they looped around it. Like, it's like they're just pussies. Look, you can have. I don't know if you've ever played like paintball, right? If you give somebody that never played paintball the best gun in the world, and you give somebody that's played paintball for years the worst gun in the world, the person that's played paintball is going to win. For whatever reason, the French are like these guys that have never played paintball. They don't know how to fight.
Yeah, they got
the last time Roger, the last time I played paintball, it was like but the pros, they just come in there like running, and all they do is shoot, like automatic, just fucking hitting everything. And as someone that's never played before, you're trying to get positions. These pro guys are like, fuck that, man. We're just gonna go in there and just rain hell on these motherfuckers, right? Dude.
Just a double trigger.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Roger, just because I'm bored and to play devil's advocate, and it is a growing pet peeve of mine on the app. Since you were kind of playing a semantic game, like what's the definition of a word, and it's shit in that guy's face, rightfully so, because he is a retard. But then he didn't know the meaning of the word evidence. This is getting completely out of control in a way that's a pet peeve of mine now. Testimony counts as evidence, right? Just because people act on Clubhouse like evidence is a fact. Evidence is not a fact. Evidence is something that is relevant to determining facts. And as such, testimony counts as evidence. So if we're going to be semantic about it, whether Putin's testimony is technically evidence, it's just how the jury and the judge weight that.
Wouldn't that be considered hearsay, which would be inadmissible?
I think that's a good point, Mike.
And it's leading to the further degeneracy of Clubhouse and the domination of the internet and everyone becoming AI retards who can't think for themselves and believe only in like a priori, as in the dictionary defines it as so, therefore I'm right. Or a smart person is a huge fucking tactic on Clubhouse, and it's probably to the detriment of Congressman.
Hey Mike, I want to Google it, but I see your silhouette, and it seems like I know that movie. I don't know the name of it.
Yeah.
Is that the one? What? Yeah. What's it called?
Douglas, right? Michael Douglas, right?
With Michael Douglas?
Yeah, where he flips out because of like some ridiculous.
Like he's over it. He's over it, right?
Yeah, but it's some like minor thing that's some other thing, and then it's like
he just goes nuts.
It's still
fucking wiles out on everybody.
I have a question. Did someone say testimony was evidence or something like?
Yes.
Easy now. Yeah, Mike's that me.
Putin's testimony is evidence. Is what you're saying?
It could be. None of it.
Okay,
We're
you
not,
say it could be.
hold on.
Okay.
The clubhouse is not a courtroom. There is no judge and there is no jury. So the fucking term evidence is kind of irrelevant. And so if your tactic for winning an argument on Clubhouse is what is your evidence, it's kind of a stupid fucking point because no one here has any evidence. We're all just giving testimony.
Evidence can always be challenged, or it can be corroborated. But if you have testimony, that testimony is also subject to examination by the other side.
Well, understood. I was just trying to get clarity of, because I didn't hear the whole thing, so I was just trying to figure out.
Mike, I think what you're missing here, Mike, is that one, like, yeah, I guess testimony could be evidence if it's like